The vet's hands trembled as he counted the tiny bodies, 15 squirming puppies, each one a bundle of hope. But as he pulled away the last of the afterbirth, reality crashed down. Those weren't puppies. They were coyotes, wild and untamed, destined for a life of chaos. My heart sank as I watched my mother's dreams unravel, her eyes filled with betrayal. In that moment, the trust within our family shattered, exposing secrets that ran deeper than blood. My name is Harper. Everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty was about to change forever. As I stood in the dim light of the living room, confusion and despair swirled inside me. The coyotes, with their wide eyes and trembling bodies, seemed to sense the tension in the air. I wanted to comfort them, to assure them that they were safe, but the fear of the unknown gripped my heart. I felt the weight of my mother's disappointment, alongside the responsibility of caring for these wild creatures who had unwittingly entered my life. Ethan, sensing my turmoil, stepped closer, his presence a balm to my frayed nerves. "Harper, we need to think clearly. The coyotes need our help," he said softly, trying to bridge the widening gap in our family caused by this unforeseen twist. "I know, but how can I explain this to Olivia?" I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. The thought of my younger sister's reaction sent a fresh wave of anxiety through me. Olivia had always struggled with feelings of inadequacy, often comparing herself to me, and this revelation might push her further away. Ethan gently squeezed my shoulder, grounding me. "Let's face it together. We'll figure it out." His unwavering support offered a glimmer of hope, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this would change everything. I glanced at Max, who lay exhausted but protective over her unexpected brood. I felt a twinge of anger towards her for the secrets she had kept, but I quickly swallowed it. She had no idea what her instincts had wrought. The coyotes were helpless, and my heart softened at the sight of their small forms snuggled against her. This was my responsibility now, and I had to focus on their needs. I started to gather supplies: blankets, a large box, and puppy food. As I worked, Ethan joined in, his hands deftly assembling a makeshift den where Max could nurse her unlikely offspring. Just as we were finishing, I heard the front door swing open. Olivia's voice rang through the house, light and carefree. "Hey, you won't believe what I—" Her words faltered when she stepped into the living room and caught sight of the scene before her. The laughter evaporated from her face, replaced by disbelief and confusion. What is going on?" she stammered, taking a step back as if the sight of the coyotes could harm her. I opened my mouth to explain, but the words tangled in my throat. How could I articulate the chaos my life had become? Instead, I simply gestured towards Max and her litter. "They're coyotes, Olivia." "Max! She gave birth to them." The words hung heavily in the air, thick with the weight of unspoken emotions. For a moment, Olivia's expression was unreadable, her eyes darting between me and the small creatures that seemed to embody everything we had struggled to understand about our lives. A flicker of jealousy crossed her features, swiftly replaced by uncertainty. "Why would she do that?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper, a hint of accusation woven in. "You've always had this perfect connection with animals, and now this?" I felt a ping of sadness at her words. My sister had always felt overshadowed by my passion, but this moment wasn't about me. It was about something larger than both of us. "Olivia, this isn't about me or Max. We need to help them survive, and I could use your help." She folded her arms, skepticism etched on her face. "Help? With coyotes? What do you expect me to do, Harper? They're not even dogs." I could hear the frustration in her voice. And it stung. I had never intended for any of this to become a competition between us. I know they're not dogs, but they need care. They need someone who can be brave enough to face this with us. I stepped closer, hoping to bridge the emotional chasm that had formed. "I understand you're upset, but I need you. We're family, and that means facing hard things together." Her gaze softened a fraction, and I could see her internal struggle playing out in her eyes. But what if they're dangerous? What if they don't belong here? The fear in her voice was palpable, echoing my own doubts. They do belong here, Olivia. Max is their mother, and as their family, it's our responsibility to protect them, just like we would protect you. The words slipped out before I could catch them, but they resonated with a truth that felt undeniable. Ethan cleared his throat, stepping in with his calming demeanor. We can create a safe space for them, teach them how to behave around humans, and eventually find a way to integrate them into the world they belong to. They are not just animals, they are a part of this family now. His conviction was infectious, and I saw a flicker of understanding in Olivia's eyes. "Okay," she finally said, her voice steadier. "I'll help, but only if we promise to keep them safe. I don't want anything to happen to you or Max." Relief washed over me, and I nodded vigorously. "We'll do this together, just like we always have." As we began to gather supplies again, I caught a glimpse of Max, her eyes bright with a fierce protectiveness over her pups. In that moment, I realized the depth of love and resilience we all had within us. This was more than an unexpected turn of events. It was a challenge that could bring us together. With a renewed sense of purpose, I felt the fragile threads of my family binding tighter, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Together, we could navigate this complicated path, and somehow we would find a way to heal. As I sat there with Max, the reality of our situation began to settle in. The tiny, fuzzy bodies nestled against her side were not what I had anticipated. They were wild, untamed, and undeniably beautiful in their own right. I couldn't help but marvel at the paradox before me. A domestic dog giving birth to creatures so far removed from her own nature. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Was I meant to protect these coyotes? Did they even belong here, in my home? The questions swirled in my mind, creating a storm I couldn't easily navigate. Ethan walked into the room, his brow furrowed with concern. He had always been the rational one, grounding me when emotions threatened to overwhelm. "Harper," he began softly, kneeling next to me, "we need to talk about what this means. There are too many uncertainties." I could see the worry etched in his features, and it mirrored my own fears. I nodded, swallowing hard as I considered what lay ahead. "We can't just ignore them," I said finally. Glancing at the small coyotes, their eyes still closed, oblivious to the complexities of their origins. "They're just babies, Ethan. They didn't choose this." I felt a fierce protectiveness surge within me, determined to care for them, despite the chaos surrounding their arrival. Ethan sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "I understand, but coyotes are wild animals. They could be dangerous, and raising them could pose risks not just to us, but to them as well." His words stung, but I understood the reality he was painting. My mind raced with the implications. What if they grew aggressive? What if they rejected Max? My heart pounded as I realized that the very bond I cherished with her could be tested in unimaginable ways. As if sensing my turmoil, Max lifted her head and nudged one of the little coyotes closer to me. The instinctive trust in her eyes rekindled my determination. I couldn't abandon them. Just then, Olivia burst through the door. Her expression a mix of curiosity and disbelief. "What is going on? I heard the commotion." She froze mid-sentence, her eyes darting from Max to the unexpected litter. I could sense her tension, a cocktail of jealousy and confusion brewing beneath the surface. "Are those coyotes?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I braced myself for her reaction, knowing she had always struggled with feeling overshadowed, but I couldn't let her insecurities cloud the moment. "Yes," I replied, attempting to maintain my composure. "Max gave birth to them." Olivia's face fell, and I could almost see her thoughts churning. I stepped closer, trying to bridge the emotional gap that seemed to grow between us. "Olivia, I need your help. We all do. I can't raise them alone." Her eyes narrowed, an internal battle waging within her. "What do you mean? You're taking care of wild animals now? I thought you were an animal rescuer, not a wildlife rehabilitator." I could hear the bite in her voice, thick with resentment and the burden of unspoken feelings. "You're right," I admitted, "but I can't turn my back on them. They need us. We need to figure out how to care for Max and her pups together." Olivia shifted her gaze to Max, who lay exhausted but protective over her unexpected brood. I could see her resolve falter, the instinct to help conflicting with her own struggles. Ethan stepped in, his calming presence radiating hope. "Olivia, this is an opportunity for us to come together as a family. We can learn about these coyotes and ensure they're safe." His words hung in the air, and slowly I could see Olivia's expression soften. Perhaps she felt the weight of responsibility, that this was something bigger than herself. "I guess I can help a little," she finally replied, her voice quieter, as if conceding a part of her jealousy in exchange for a chance to bond over something new. I felt a glimmer of relief, an inkling that maybe we could navigate this together. In the days that followed, the house became a flurry of activity. We researched everything we could about raising coyotes, studying their behavior and needs. Ethan and I put our heads together, sharing ideas and discussing the best ways to create a safe space for Max and her pups. Olivia, initially hesitant, began to take on small tasks, whether it was setting up a comfortable nesting area or helping with the feeding schedule. I could see her anxiety transform into curiosity, a spark igniting as she watched the little creatures grow. However, as the pups developed, I couldn't shake the nagging worry that lingered at the back of my mind. Each day brought new challenges, and I began to feel the pressure mounting. I found myself torn between wanting to protect these wild beings and understanding their instincts, grappling with the reality that they would one day need to return to the wild. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch watching Max care for her pups, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had spent countless hours in the field rescuing animals, but I had never encountered a situation quite like this. The vulnerability of those little coyotes mirrored my own fears about my family and the bonds we were trying to strengthen. I realized that this experience, as daunting as it was, could become a turning point for all of us. "Harper," Ethan called, pulling me from my thoughts. "You should see how the pups are starting to respond to sounds. It's incredible." I jumped up, my heart racing with excitement, and made my way to him. As I watched the coyotes react to our voices, I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me. Maybe this unexpected twist in our lives could become a beautiful lesson in resilience and trust, both for the coyotes and for my family. As I turned to Ethan, I could see a newfound determination in his eyes as well. This journey was just beginning, and together, I felt we could face whatever challenges lay ahead. We were in this together, and with each passing day, I believed more strongly that we would emerge stronger, united as a family, ready to embrace whatever came next. If you're interested in following along as we continue our journey through this unexpected chapter, consider subscribing for more updates and stories about our evolving lives and the lessons we learn along the way. It's a wild ride, and I wouldn't want you to miss a moment of it. The days that followed Max's unexpected delivery were a whirlwind of emotions, each one more intense than the last. I found myself torn between the thrill of caring for the tiny wild pups and the confusion that enveloped our household. Each morning, I would rise early to check on Max and her new family, my heart swelling with both pride and apprehension. As I watched her nurture the coyotes, instinctively teaching them to feed and survive, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was witnessing something extraordinary and deeply unsettling. Ethan remained my rock through it all. His calm demeanor and supportive presence made each challenge easier to bear. He'd spend hours researching the implications of raising coyotes, his veterinarian's mind working tirelessly to ensure we were doing everything right. I admired his dedication, but there was also a flicker of worry in his eyes. He loved Max as much as I did, and I could sense the weight of uncertainty pressing on him. "Harper," he said one evening, his voice low as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, "we need to think about what this means for our family. These animals aren't like dogs. They have different needs and instincts." I nodded, recognizing the truth in his words. Still, my heart ached at the thought of separating Max from her pups. Each time I ventured closer to the coyote den, I felt a mixture of enchantment and dread. They were wild, yet they looked to Max for guidance. And in those moments, it felt like I was witnessing the beauty of nature's unpredictable ways. But as I studied them, I also knew that raising them was not just about nurturing, it was about understanding that they would never fully be domesticated. Meanwhile, Olivia's jealousy bubbled beneath the surface, creating a rift in our usually close-knit family. Her visits became less frequent, and when she did show up, her expressions were filled with resentment and confusion. "Why do you care so much about them? They're not puppies, Harper," she said one afternoon, her voice sharp as she leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed defensively. "Why can't you see that this is all just a mess?" I could see the hurt in her eyes, a combination of jealousy and insecurity that she had struggled with for years, and it stung to know that my devotion to these wild creatures could push her further away. "Olivia, they're part of our family now. We need to learn from this, not just run away from it," I replied gently, hoping to reach her. But she turned her back on me, leaving the room with a huff. My heart sank, knowing that the chasm between us was growing. I wanted so desperately to pull her closer, to show her that there was enough love to go around, but I didn't know how to bridge the gap. One evening, Ethan suggested we all take a family trip to the nature reserve nearby. "It might help us reconnect," he said, his eyes searching mine for agreement. I hesitated, knowing how Olivia often reacted to outings, especially when she felt overshadowed. But I also recognized that we needed to come together to face this strange situation as a family. So, with a mix of excitement and anxiety, we decided to go. The fresh air enveloped us as we arrived, the tall trees swaying gently in the breeze. I felt a flicker of hope as we began to walk along the trails. I looked over at Olivia, who had initially trudged behind us, and noted a moment where she seemed to relax, her shoulders dropping slightly as she took in the beauty around her. I smiled, wanting to seize this moment. "Look at the squirrels over there," I exclaimed, pointing to a flurry of movement in the branches. "They're so quick and playful." Ethan joined in, nudging Olivia gently. "You used to love watching them when we were kids," he said, his tone teasing but warm. Slowly, a smile crept onto her face. "Yeah, I guess they are kind of cute," she conceded, and I felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this outing would mend some of the frayed edges of our relationship. As we walked further, I began to talk about the coyotes, sharing what I had learned from Ethan and my own observations. "They're not just wild animals, they have a social structure. They rely on family, just like we do," I said, trying to relate their nature to our own dynamics. Olivia listened, her expression softening as she absorbed my words. For the first time in a while, it felt like she was truly hearing me. Just then, a coyote howled in the distance, sending a shiver down my spine. Instinctively, I turned to Olivia, who looked momentarily frightened. "See, they're communicating," I said, trying to keep the mood light. "They have their own language, just like we have ours." As the sun began to set, casting golden hues across the sky, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Maybe this trip could rekindle the bonds that were fraying. I glanced at Ethan, who smiled back reassuringly, and I knew we were all trying to find our way through this complicated situation together. Perhaps we could learn to embrace the unexpected, just as Max had embraced her new role as a mother to her wild pups. With that thought, I took a deep breath, hoping that the journey ahead would bring us closer together, allowing us to navigate the wild uncertainties that life had thrown our way. This was our moment, a chance to redefine what family meant amidst the chaos and surprises that had come crashing into our lives. As I watched Max nurturing her unexpected litter, a mixture of awe and anxiety washed over me. It was astonishing to see her instinctively care for the wild pups, each one a reflection of nature's unpredictable designs. I knew this was going to be a challenge, not just for her, but for our family as well. Ethan entered the living room, his brow furrowed in concentration. He had been researching everything he could about coyotes, trying to prepare himself for what was to come. I admired his dedication, but a part of me worried about how he would handle the growing tension within our household. "Harper," he said, taking a seat beside me on the couch, "I think it might be best if we keep Max and her pups isolated for a while. I don't want anything to happen to them." His voice was steady, but I could see the concern in his eyes. I nodded, understanding the wisdom behind his words, yet feeling an undercurrent of resentment toward the situation. Why had this happened? We had always wanted to create a loving home for our pets, and now we were thrust into a wild scenario that felt overwhelming and frightening. I glanced at Olivia, who stood by the doorway, arms crossed. Her silence spoke volumes, and I could feel the resentment radiating from her. I knew she was struggling with her own feelings about the chaos that had erupted in our lives. It was as if the arrival of these coyote pups had amplified her insecurities, making her feel even more sidelined. Our childhood had been filled with moments where she felt overshadowed by my passion for animals, and this situation must have reignited those old wounds. "Are you okay?" I finally asked her, breaking the silence that had settled in the room like a thick fog. She shrugged but didn't meet my gaze. "I'm fine," she replied, her tone sharp. The bite in her voice made it clear that she was anything but fine. I wanted to reach out, to reassure her that she was still important to me, but the words seemed to get stuck in my throat. The distance between us felt insurmountable, and I could sense her jealousy creeping in like an unwanted shadow. Ethan shifted in his seat, attempting to diffuse the tension. "Let's focus on how we can support Max and her pups," he suggested, trying to steer the conversation back to a more productive place. I appreciated his effort, but I couldn't shake the feeling that my sister was struggling with something deeper. "Olivia, if you want to help, we could use an extra pair of hands," I offered, hoping to include her in this new chapter rather than push her further away. She sighed, a mixture of frustration and resignation. "Sure, I guess," she mumbled, finally stepping into the room. I took it as a small victory, but I could see that her heart wasn't in it. The weight of unspoken words hung heavily in the air between us, and I felt an urgency to address it before it became too much to bear. As we began to set up a safe space for Max and her pups, I took note of the distinct differences between the coyote pups and our beloved Max. They were more energetic, their eyes bright and wild, filled with a curious spirit that hinted at their untamed lineage. I couldn't help but wonder what their future held. Would they adapt to a domestic life, or would they always feel the pull of the wild? I looked at Ethan, who was carefully examining Max for any signs of distress. His calm demeanor reassured me, but I knew we would need to be vigilant in managing both the physical and emotional needs of our growing family. "Do you think they'll be okay?" I asked Ethan, my voice barely above a whisper. "What if they don't fit in? What if they never adjust?" He looked up from his examination, his eyes softening as they met mine. "It's all about how we approach it," he said gently. "If we provide love and support, they'll find their place, just like we all do." I wanted to believe him, but uncertainty gnawed at me. Max trotted over to me, nudging my hand with her snout as if sensing my worries. I smiled softly, reassured by her presence. "You're doing an amazing job, girl," I whispered, scratching behind her ears. As I did, I felt a connection, a reminder that love could bridge even the most unexpected gaps. The days turned into weeks, and the initial shock of the coyotes gave way to routine. I found myself increasingly captivated by their antics, their playful nature bringing unexpected joy to our home. Yet there was still a cloud hanging over my relationship with Olivia. She would often retreat to her room, refusing to join in on our newly established routine of caring for Max and her pups. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, I spotted Olivia in the garden, digging up weeds with a fierce determination. I couldn't help but see the parallels. She was trying to uproot the feelings of inadequacy that had taken root in her heart. I decided it was time to confront the issue head-on. I took a deep breath and walked over to her, the soft earth beneath my feet grounding me. "Olivia, can we talk?" I asked, hoping my voice sounded steady. She looked up, surprise flashing in her eyes. "About what? The coyotes?" "About us," I replied. "I can see that this situation is affecting you, and I want to understand how you're feeling." Her shoulders relaxed slightly at my words, but a wall still stood between us, one built on years of unspoken emotions. "I just feel like everything always revolves around your animals," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can compete with that." The vulnerability in her admission pierced my heart, and I realized how truly distant we had become in the chaos of life. "You don't have to compete, Olivia," I said, my voice earnest. "You're my sister, and you mean the world to me. I want us to be in this together." As I spoke, I felt the weight of my own love for her rise to the surface, pushing through the barriers of misunderstanding. Her eyes softened as she listened, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of hope. "Really?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. I nodded, reaching out to touch her shoulder gently. "Always." The air between us shifted, and I could feel the walls begin to crumble. Perhaps the presence of the wild pups was exactly what we needed to rekindle our bond. Together, we could navigate the unpredictable waters of our new reality, side by side, no longer lost in the shadows of jealousy. As Olivia and I stood in the soft, warm light of the kitchen, an unsteady silence enveloped us. I searched her face for signs of the sister I once knew, the one who shared my dreams of rescuing animals. Instead, I found a reflection of her struggles, the insecurities and jealousy that had festered over time. "You know," I began carefully, "this could be a chance for us to bond again. We can raise these pups together, learn from each other." Her brow furrowed, and I could sense her internal battle. For a moment, I thought she might brush me off, clinging to her resentment. But then, a flicker of hope sparked in her eyes. "I guess it is a bit different," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd be helping raise coyotes of all things. It feels wild." "Exactly," I said, trying to infuse enthusiasm into my words. "They're wild, but we can nurture them to be safe and adaptable. Just think of the stories we'll have to tell. We'll be their protectors." She considered this, her expression softening. "But what if they run away?" "Then we'll have to teach them to trust us." Max, who had been resting by the door, lifted her head, as if understanding the importance of our conversation. She patted over to Olivia, her tail wagging, offering a connection that transcended our worries. I watched as Olivia knelt and reached out, letting Max nuzzle against her. It was a small gesture, yet it felt monumental, a step towards mending our frayed relationship. As the days passed, the reality of our situation began to sink in, much like the quiet rhythm of life settling into a new normal. Ethan was a steady presence, his gentle manner reassuring both Olivia and me. He took on the responsibility of overseeing the pups' health, while I focused on their socialization and acclimation to a domestic environment. Together, we created a safe space where wildness and love could coexist, and slowly, the tension that had existed between Olivia and me started to dissipate. One evening, while we were all gathered in the living room, I noticed Olivia watching Ethan as he played with the pups. There was admiration in her eyes, a contrast to the jealousy I had seen before. "You really love animals, don't you?" she remarked, her tone light but thoughtful. Ethan glanced up, a smile spreading across his face. "I love them like their family. Each creature deserves a chance, no matter how wild." "It's amazing," she continued, and I could see her mind racing. "Sometimes I feel so lost in comparison. You both have this purpose." I felt a pang of sadness at her admission, realizing how deeply her insecurities ran. "Olivia," I said gently, "you have your own purpose. You've always been passionate about art and helping others. You don't need to measure yourself against us." "But it's different," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I wish I could be as confident as you." "You are confident in your own way. Look at how you're interacting with the pups. You're nurturing them, and that's what matters." She took a deep breath and nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing her features. "I guess I haven't seen it like that." The more we talked, the more I felt the chasm between us bridge. Days turned into weeks, and with every howl of the coyotes, a new chapter in our lives unfolded. We documented their growth, sharing silly stories and moments on social media, inviting our friends and community to witness the journey. Each comment filled with support further solidified our connection, and slowly, Olivia began to emerge from the shadows of her envy. One particularly warm afternoon, while we were outside, Olivia suggested that we host a small gathering for our friends to showcase the coyotes. I was taken aback but thrilled. It felt like a significant leap, a bold step towards embracing our new reality. "Are you sure?" I asked, my heart racing with excitement and apprehension. "Absolutely," she replied, her eyes shining with determination. "This is something we've created together, and I want to celebrate it." With Ethan's encouragement, we set a day for the event, and over the next few days, we busied ourselves preparing. There was an air of anticipation that charged our home, and it felt invigorating. Olivia took the lead on decorations, transforming our backyard into a vibrant oasis. I marveled at her creativity, watching as she strung lights and hung colorful banners, her laughter ringing through the air. The day of the gathering arrived, and as our friends filtered in, I felt a surge of pride. Olivia greeted each guest with enthusiasm, her earlier insecurities seeming to melt away in the face of shared joy. Ethan and I demonstrated how to care for the pups, explaining their wild instincts and what we hope to teach them. The coyotes, with their vibrant energy, enchanted everyone, bringing laughter and awe. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue over the scene, I caught Olivia gazing at the coyotes, a serene smile lighting her face. It was a moment that spoke volumes. She was no longer overshadowed by her fears. I walked over and stood beside her, sharing the stillness. "You've come so far," I whispered, pride swelling in my chest. "Thanks to you and Ethan," she replied softly. "No, Olivia, you did this. You found your voice again." As the evening unfolded, I felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over me. Our family was healing, and although our journey was far from over, we were moving forward together. The unexpected birth of the coyotes had not just challenged us, it had forged a new bond, one that echoed with laughter, understanding, and resilience. If you have a story of transformation or overcoming obstacles, share it with us. We'd love to hear about your experiences and the moments that brought you closer to the people you love. As the days passed, I felt a growing tension in the house. The arrival of the coyotes had been a shock, but it also seemed to amplify the underlying issues between Olivia and me. She spent more time avoiding me, and I could sense her jealousy deepening with each passing moment. The coyotes, though undeniably a fascinating twist in our lives, became a catalyst for her insecurities. And I couldn't help but worry about how this would affect our already fragile relationship. Each time I cared for the coyotes, I could see her watching from the corner of the room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, as if she were bracing herself against the very idea that I might be drawing closer to these new creatures while she felt pushed aside. Ethan remained my steady rock, offering words of encouragement and practical support as we figured out how to raise the coyotes while ensuring Max was comfortable and safe. He often reminded me that this was a unique opportunity for all of us to learn and grow. One evening, after a long day of tending to Max and her new brood, we sat on our porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky blazed with oranges and purples, a stark contrast to the confusion swirling inside me. "You know, Harper," Ethan said softly, breaking the silence, "sometimes the most surprising challenges can lead to the greatest rewards." I wanted to believe him, to see the potential for growth through this chaos, but the weight of Olivia's resentment hung heavy in the air. The next morning, I decided it was time to confront the situation with Olivia. I found her in the kitchen, staring out the window, her brow furrowed. "Hey," I said gently, trying to break the ice. She turned to me, her expression guarded. "I just wanted to talk," I continued, "about everything that's been happening. I feel like there's this distance between us." Her eyes flickered with surprise, but quickly hardened. "What's there to talk about? You're busy with your special coyotes, and I'm just here." Her words stung, and I felt a pang of guilt. It was never my intention to make her feel less than important. "I don't want you to feel that way," I replied, my voice steady but pleading. "These animals are a responsibility we're sharing as a family. I need your help, and I want you involved. You're my sister, and I love you." Olivia crossed her arms tighter, her defenses up as if my words were arrows aimed at a target she refused to allow herself to be. "You love them more," she shot back, bitterness lacing her tone. "You're so good at everything, and I can't compete. You have a passion for saving animals, and I'm just trying to figure out my life." Her honesty shocked me, and I realized that it wasn't just the coyotes that made her feel overshadowed. It was everything. Our childhood, our dreams, and now this unexpected twist. "Olivia," I said softly, moving closer, "this isn't a competition. You are talented in ways I could never be. You've always had this incredible creativity that I admire. Just because I found my path doesn't mean you haven't found yours. We can support each other." A tear slipped down her cheek, and I reached out, brushing it away gently. "You don't have to be jealous of me. You're not alone in this. Let's find a way to navigate this together." Her walls began to crumble, and I could see the flicker of hope behind her guarded expression. "I just don't know how to be like you," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I'm always in your shadow." At that moment, I understood how deeply Olivia's insecurities ran. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "You don't need to be like me. You just need to be yourself. That's more than enough." We stood there, the silence stretching as she processed what I had said. I could see her contemplating whether to let go of the jealousy that had been weighing her down. In the days that followed, I made an effort to involve Olivia more in the care of the coyotes. I organized a small family gathering to introduce her to the new challenges and joys they brought. With Ethan's help, we set up an educational day where we could share what we'd learned and connect more as a family. Olivia seemed hesitant at first, but slowly, as we worked together, I noticed her interest sparking. I encouraged her to name one of the coyotes, and she lit up when she chose Willow, reflecting her personality and the beauty of the wild. As I watched her interact with the coyotes, I felt a warmth spread through me. It was as if the ice between us was melting. She laughed when Willow curled up against her leg, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like we were truly sisters again. Ethan caught my eye, giving me an encouraging nod, and I realized that despite the chaos of the past weeks, we were beginning to build something stronger than what had been broken. Family wasn't just about shared blood. It was about shared experiences and support, and in that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope for our future. The coyotes, in all their wildness, were weaving a new narrative for us, one filled with love, understanding, and the promise of healing.